Hi there, I'm Mark News, and this is another episode of Tax and Other Necessary Things. Today I want to talk to you just a little bit about the importance of filing a tax return versus actually paying your taxes. Two separate things. My job as a tax attorney has had me running into these situations frequently where people don't understand the difference between those two things, and they don't know that whether they should file their taxes if they can't afford to pay. There's some great pieces of information in this video, so please stick around till the end. Our tax system is set up as an honor system. So basically, we do our taxes and we tell the government what we owe them, okay? Now, we do this under a pretty rigid system of tax laws and regulations, but in the end, the tax return that we submit tells the government and the IRS what we owe this year. We sign that tax return, and we do that under penalty of perjury. Now, we all know, or we should know, that the government collects plenty of information about us, about our income and sources of income and other information. They require informational returns from businesses and other institutions, and so they have this information available to them, and they use that information to check your return. They're looking for inconsistencies and other reasons to request more information. But this information is used mainly as a check, kind of a sanity check to make sure that your tax return is somewhat the truth, okay? Now, it may surprise you to know that it is actually a little bit of a crime, small little crime, not to file your tax return. Even if you have minimal levels of income, you probably ought to file your tax return unless you know that you're not required to file. Now, this does not mean that you have to pay if you file your tax return. And this is very important. It's why I'm here to talk to you today. So you ask yourself, should I file when I know I owe money to the IRS and I can't afford to pay? Well, the answer in almost every case is absolutely yes. If you owe money to the government and you can't afford to pay, you should, or actually you must, still file your tax return. If it's late, you're going to pay a penalty. If you owe money to the government, you're going to pay some interest if you don't pay. But that's it. I mean, penalties and interest. And then, of course, the taxes. But it is not generally a crime not to pay your taxes if you don't have the money. You can't afford to pay. And it's important that you file your tax return and you do so as accurately as you can. But if you can't afford to pay, file and then figure out how to pay later. I want to be clear here that it can be a crime not to pay your taxes, but that usually involves trying to evade taxes and that kind of thing. And I'm not here to talk about that today, but I want to make sure it's clear that not paying your taxes is a big deal, but to purposely do so when you can certainly afford it and to move money around could get you in trouble. So even if you've been paying into federal taxes and your employer's been deducting money from your paycheck and you think that you're probably due a refund, should you file your taxes then? A lot of people don't. They think, well, the government's got my money, they owe me, and so I'm not going to file. Again, you want to file. It's a crime not to, but you give up all kinds of rights when you don't file. A lot of negative things can happen to you, other than obviously the loss of a refund that you're due. It's important to file your tax return because doing so opens up lots of legal avenues to you if you can't afford to pay. The clock, quote, starts ticking, and several other timelines begin moving along when you file your tax return. If you don't do that, then those clocks never start to tick. Now, for instance, if the government has 10 years to collect a tax from you and that clock hasn't started ticking yet, then that 10-year period hasn't started. Also, if you need to work out a payment plan or take care of money you owe, the IRS is generally going to require you to file all those tax returns before they're going to work out some sort of favorable resolution. They'll always accept a payment from you voluntarily, but they may not stop collection efforts until after you've paid. So the bottom line is your tax return should be filed no matter what. The caveat may be that if your income is too low, say you're on Social Security and you have no other source of income, you may not have to file. But you're required to know whether that's the case or not. So always speak to your tax professional accountant, tax preparer to understand whether or not you have to file in the first place. Most people do have to file, and you should always err on the side of caution. When in doubt, file your tax return. So that's the bottom line here. That's why I'm here to talk to you today. Stay tuned for more exciting episodes of tax and other necessary things. Next time I'll be talking about what happens if you do not file your tax return. What happens? What does the IRS do then? So I'm Mark News. Hopefully this was helpful to you. I'm with Westward Law, and so long.